one really knows what lies in the depths of the oceans. These mysterious deep bodies of water are capable of anything you can imagine. Unfortunately, the greatest human minds have failed to decipher these vast, endless oceans and seas. No one can really predict what might wash up ashore from one of these. Sometimes it's just underwater creatures no one has seen before, but at other times exceptionally strange things tend to get vomited out by the waters. While some of the stories you hear might just be tales spun over time, there's a few inexplicable things we all want answers to. Here's a list of the top 12 strangest things that have washed up on shores and have left people confused about their origins and how they ended up in the water to begin with. Before we get started, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe and click the notification bell for more such amazing content. Let's dive in. Number 12. Muruwai Monster. Starting the list with this monster, although don't let the name fool you, this huge piece of flotsam washed ashore on the Muruwai beach located in Auckland, New Zealand. As you can see, this thing looks creepy and terrifying, as if it's some extraterrestrial entity that appears in a sci-fi horror mystery. There was a lot of speculation regarding this Muruwai monster. People had all kinds of theories, from assuming it was an old drowned Maori canoe to some believing it was a giant sea animal that died and was invaded by something else. It's such a mysterious thing that once its photos hit social media, people started filing in to check it out. The scientists of the New Zealand Marine Sciences Society think that it was just a very large piece of driftwood that became the habitat of numerous gooseneck barnacles. The reality probably isn't as exciting as we'd hoped, but this weird and ugly monster resembling wood is a one-of-a-kind occurrence.
What the fuck?
Number
That's
11.
weird.
It rained Easter eggs in Germany. This story is a tad bit more festive, hence more interesting. On the island of Langurg, Germany, in the year 2017, people were at the beach hoping to enjoy the weather, go for a swim and maybe catch a few rays. But to their surprise, they were greeted by thousands of Easter eggs that were scattered all over the beach. The children were obviously elated at the sight and immediately wanted to dig in and find out what treats this colourful egg had to offer. As expected, every single egg had a toy inside. This was probably one of the most fun mysteries the locals...
What the fuck?
What?
Just like thousands of Easter eggs washed up onto this fucking island in Germany. Or coast of Germany, I don't know.
To improve. You can use it.
With toys
But how
inside.
did these eggs wash up ashore, you may ask? Turns out a storm at sea was the reason behind it. Freight ships were transporting these eggs when the weather suddenly got hostile.
The question
Five
is, why
freight
were
containers
ships
fell
holding
overboard.
Right.
so many
These
fucking
containers
Easter
opened
eggs?
up due to
Right.
the fall, and their contents spilled out into the
It's
ocean.
like the bitches can
But
be made
cleaning up this
anywhere.
happy
Why is
mess
it
was
like,
a fun task.
why
The
you
town mayor let the
transport from? Put the
kindergartners
bitches on a
take home
fucking
all
plane.
the eggs they could carry with them. So the beach was cleaned, children were elated, and the community got to bond over a strange but happy accident. This is what we call the silver lining. Number 10. Neptunes Grass. This is probably the strangest one on the list. Neptunes grass is something that grows under the southern Australian coasts. The remains of this grass intermingled and led to the formation of this hairball-like thing you can see in the footage. If you're expecting these balls to be small, think again, because the average ball of Neptune grass is roughly as big as an adult fist. These big brownish balls of fuzz will eventually wash up on shore, especially after the storms
What
hit
did
the
he say?
coasts.
These big
Locals are
brownish
used to
balls.
finding thousands of these balls appear overnight. It's a strange grass, but its presence on the beaches is pretty harmless and poses no direct threat to the people or the environment, but we all know too much of anything is bad. Number 9. Portuguese Man of War, England. In 2017, locals at the Perranporth beach were greeted by what looked like around 140 deflated blue and purple balloons. But to everyone's surprise, these turned out to be strange, tentacled, multicoloured underwater creatures. At first sight, anyone would assume they're from a different planet, but that's not the truth. These are Portuguese man-o'-wars,
What
and
the
they're a
fuck?
deadly species of jellyfish.
Yeah, it's
Their
very, very
sting can
deadly
be
fucking
fatal, and their
jellyfish.
tentacles can grow up to lengths as long as 50 metres.
Yo, those are
It's
weird,
nothing out
bro.
of the ordinary to find jellyfish on shores, but this
Motherfuckers
particular
can
member of the
take your leg
jellyfish
off.
family is rarely sighted, and it's better to stay away
They'll
from
kill
it.
you too.
These typically
Really?
are native to the Atlantic Ocean, but the strong winds over the ocean have
They
caused
have the
these
most,
beautiful but
like,
dangerous creatures
excruciating
to
sting
wash
out
up
of all
on
jellyfish.
beaches. Number 8. Giant squid, Wellington Beach,
Cause you'd
New
have a heart
Zealand.
attack.
This creature
God
very
damn.
much seems a fantasy. Being a deep-sea creature, it's a pretty rare occurrence for huge squids to be found ashore.
Demon-ass
But
jellyfish,
contrary
bro.
to the normal, a few divers at the Wellington Beach of New Zealand found a
But I don't
4.2
fuck with
metre long
jellyfish.
giant squid lying dead on the beach. Although the local divers are used to seeing many deep water animals like sharks, Giant squid wasn't something they could
Christian in
claim
there?
was a normal
I have
sighting.
no idea.
It's hard not to feel terrified swimming with something 3 times your size. The divers were obviously compelled to take photos of the squid. Some even snapped a few selfies laying next to it. As expected, this squid caught the public attention as soon as its pictures and the
I will say the
backstory
one
hit the
like
internet.
good thing about you watching
Weirdly,
the
the
videos,
divers
like I
claim
know
that
that
when
I'm
they
not
left the
like
squid for a while and
disconnected from the
returned,
fucking
it
Discord.
seemed shrunken, so no one can actually be sure how big it was before
So, like
it was
you watching a
discovered.
video has some use.
Number 7.
Fuck
Conjoined
you.
dolphin twins of Turkey.
Fucking
This one
asshole.
must have caught your attention too.
Hey,
This bizarre event occurred back in 2014 at a beach
finally
in
get a new
Turkey,
controller yet?
where a tourist
Nope.
found these conjoined dolphin twins on the shore in the town of Izmir. At first, a lot of people assumed this was just a hoax staged to gain attention, as finding conjoined twins in the marine world is exceptionally rare, and there are only 5 documented cases of conjoined dolphin twins to date.
Wow.
The two-headed dolphin was around 1 metre in length, and experts were able to determine its age, which was rumoured to be just about 12 months. Even more astounding is the fact that this is one of the only 2 documented cases of conjoined dolphin twins to have lived past the fetal stage. The dolphins were probably thrown out of the water due to a storm and died before they could make their way back. And this story gets even more mysterious because when the representatives of the local university came to collect the body to study and put it on display, it was nowhere to be found. Mind-boggling, right? Number 6. Dinosaur thigh bone, Washington Beach, USA. When the scientists of Washington, USA went out to the beach in search of small spiral
I don't know where
shells of
Christian
extinct
is.
animals called ammonites, what they did not expect to find was a dinosaur femur bone. The huge bone was once part of the body of the top of a 2-legged carnivorous dinosaur that resembled the infamous species we know as T-Rex and Velociraptor. They believe it to be 80 million years old. Of course, the discovery was incredibly cool, but it has also helped solidify the evidence in favour of the fact that dinosaurs once roamed the lands of Washington State, the USA. The femur had probably been buried under the earth, but the tide coming in and out with time led to recession over the overlying earth, and it managed to bring the bone closer to the surface. Imagine finding the remnants of a creature you only see in movies and cartoons on your local beach while taking a leisurely walk. It must cause a confusing minute of feelings. Number 5. World War II era love letters. Sandy Hook Bay, New Jersey.
What up?
This one will just swell your heart if you're a hopeless romantic, because let's face it, who doesn't adore love letters? A total of 57 love letters were found on the beach by a 14-year-old boy in New Jersey just before the place was hit by Hurricane Sandy. The letters were written by a young woman residing in New Jersey to a lover who lived in Vermont. No one can tell where these notes were in the ocean or how they ended up here, but they were brought to the shore by strong currents. Luckily for us,
What's
these
up?
letters made it to the beach and
Are you
restored
leaving?
our faith in true
No.
love. These letters were written up to the evening of the
I'm
couple's
eating.
wedding day. They were found sealed in a box, and of course they got wet in the water. The boy who discovered them was able to save them by drying each one separately. He also read each of them. Every letter ended with, "I love you, dear, and miss you very much. All my love, always, Dottie." No doubt findings like this are something we can all relate to, despite the mundane realities of life. Number 4. Rotting whale corpse, Kulong Beach, Indonesia. This bizarre find seems straight out of a marine horror movie. It was first found by a local on a beach in Indonesia. At first, everyone thought it was an old washed-up boat, but it turns out it was the rotting corpse of a beluga whale. As the onlookers got closer to it, they could not help but feel nausea. Number 2. Giant pipes, England. Beachgoers in Norfolk, England didn't expect to find gigantic pipes all along the sand one fine morning in the year 2017. One of the pipes was more than half a kilometre long. A human could easily have walked in them. They had a 2.5 metre wide opening in the centre. People were quite curious as to where they came from, and just like the Muruwai Monster, there were a lot of incredible theories. The reality was, however, quite simple. The pipes had fallen out of a Norwegian boat that was on its way to an Algerian power plant. The unusual appearance did manage to draw in a fair amount of onlookers and quite a few social media posts that made it viral. The Norwegian company named Pipe Life, which was responsible for the transport of these pipes, requested the spectators to stay away from them, in case one of those got caught in the tide and was swept back into the sea while people were close to them, inside, or swimming in the vicinity. It could lead to fatal consequences. A recovery team was sent to the beach as soon as possible to clean up the accidental mess, and nobody was hurt. This event, however, did become a story the locals will be retelling for quite a long time. Number 1. Tombstones, Ocean Beach, San Francisco. We saved the creepiest one for the last. It was back in 2014 when locals visiting the ocean beach of San Francisco discovered this murky scene. This time it wasn't a weird scary animal, rather tombstones dating back to the late 1800s. It turns out that at the end of the century the local population of the city had increased faster than expected. This led to real estate expansions utilising all kinds of land, including that of cemeteries, to keep up with demand. The city had the tombstones from the cemeteries removed to aid in the construction. Stones were then dumped into a landfill to be used as sea
That's
walls.
fucked.
However, all of the tombstones didn't make it to the landfill. Some were straight up thrown in the water, and over time, with erosion and shifting sand, these stories managed to make an appearance.
That's fucked.